Let's talk about enumerations. Now, enums is what they're called. Enum would be the keyword. You're going to find this in your enums folder, and we'll just open that up. That's going to be within your project folder. You can just find enums and then nest it within the enums folder. You can see the finished product. You can also follow along with me. Now, enums are great because this allows you to get rid of that raw numeric data that you don't necessarily want to. If you know that you use 1000 to denote a red value throughout your program, and green would be 2000 and blue would be 3000, for example, or even 0, 1, and 2, you could just create an enum for that very simply, and then you could reference it throughout your application if you wanted to as a type, because you're creating a type. Sometimes you can refer to enums as types. They're called types in other languages and things like that, because you're actually creating a type differently than you're thinking about types in .NET, so we won't say that. We'll call them enums. So if we create this, then we can reference this. It's already created. You can see up here, RGB values. Then we can reference it with the dot notation, and look at that. It knows because we created it as a type. So we can do that if we wanted to. If we just create a variable to hold this type if we wanted to, we'll just create it as, we'll call it RGB, for example. We can assign it a value that's within this range if we wanted to. Give it a value of RGB values.blue. And we can use this throughout our programs if we wanted to. We can always just reference that RGB values.blue or red or green, whatever is within that type. We can't do yellow because yellow is not within that type. So we'll build. And you can see it doesn't contain a definition for yellow. We can't do that. We'll try red. Not a problem. So you can see that works pretty nicely. Now, what we did was we assigned this as a value of 0, 1, and 2 internally. We didn't actually specify a value. We did the same thing because those are defaults as if we had done this. Because it goes in order and it is numeric, how it specifies things. It makes it really easy to do that. So we don't have to actually even specify it. We could give different values if we wanted to, and that's when we have to add the separate information here. That's when we would have to use the equal sign. And we'll look at the values that we actually get from this in a little bit as well. But this is actually what you can do. So if you want to give red 100, green 101, and then blue 201, no problem. You can do that. You can also just specify 1, and then those values are going to increment to 101 and 102 automatically, because you specified 1, and that's going to be the starter here, how things are going to start, and then you continue. You also don't have to do things sequentially if you don't want to. You can change this up. Just different things you can actually do for your enumerations. You can also change this from, this is a default, enums are defaulting to system.int32, a regular int. So you could change that if you wanted to. If you wanted to change it to a byte, for example, as long as you stay within that range, you're okay. And you can also just not even specify this, the numbers here again, and start from 0 and work your way up. So you can change the type as you need to, within a certain boundary, of course. So that works quite nicely as well. Now additionally, I have everything bunched up on one line. This is the common way that you're going to see enums. And then you can put your comments here as well. Whatever you want it to be here. And that makes it a little bit more easy to explain to other people. So just to review, enum is going to be the keyword. We're giving our type name here, just like we would with a class. Here we're specifying the non-standard type that we want to change this to, convert this to as an enum. That's going to be the values that we're going to be working with. We don't have to go in sequential order. We don't even have to list these if we don't want to. And then it's really easy to reference them throughout the program, just as our RGB values.red. And it also makes it a lot easier to actually keep these enums to a short name. Very short, so you don't have to even worry about it. That makes things a lot easier to actually specify, because then, alright, you're doing something that's going to be more descriptive, but at the same time you're creating a lot more text when you're writing it. So it makes things a little bit difficult to code really fast. But that's just another thing there. And again, you can just create it as a regular type and just create a variable based on that, and it will have to fit within that range or you're going to get errors. So you need to fit within the range of what that enum stands for. Like anything else, really. You can't go out of the boundaries of a signed byte, for example, or an unsigned byte with just a byte and then put in 2000 or something like that. So it has to be, and it has to fall within the range of what you define.